On April 30th, 1970, President Nixon announced U.S. troops had invaded Cambodia. Cambodia was on the brink of a civil war. The United States invaded Cambodia because their head of state, Norodom Sihanouk, declared that they were a communist. Because of the United States' involvement helping Lon Nol, the Prime Minister of Cambodia, the United States were able to stop the communism and the threat of the domino theory. South Vietnam was also a supporter of the United States in helping Cambodia. A total of 300,000 were estimated killed in the conflict. Khrushchev was the leader of the USSR. He helped put nuclear weapons on the United States doorstep and was a major threat to the U.S. He wanted to try and avoid war and spread communism peacefully. He died on September 11, 1971. Khrushchev was not a terrible person to the United States, so America and the citizens were scared of who was going to take over after Khrushchev. Russia was growing stronger when Khrushchev was in office, and the bond between America and Russia was getting a little better. Troops leave Vietnam January 15, 1973. The war started in Vietnam when Vietnam declared independence from France, but French troops fought against that and would not give up. Americans would not let Vietnam become independent because they were afraid of communism spreading there. North and South Vietnam split, and the United States supported South Vietnam because the North was supporting communism. Tensions grew very large. Students were killed in the U.S. over it. Nixon started to get rid of troops with something called Vietnamization. The two sides agreed to the Paris Peace Accords in January 1973, after more than 50,000 Americans and more than 1 million Vietnamese deaths. But Nixon's settlement provided neither peace nor honor. North and South Vietnam continued to fight. Nixon resigns from office August 9, 1974, because of the Watergate scandal. Nixon is the only president to ever resign from office. Nixon's vice president, Gerald Ford, was sworn in the same day that he resigned. The Watergate is an apartment complex in Washington, D.C., which is the head of the Democratic Party. Gordon Liddy, lead of operatives to break into the building, was working on Nixon's re-election committee. He was the one who broke in. In a court, a judge believed Liddy was pressured by higher up to say he was guilty. Nixon didn't want the scandal to ruin his presidency, so he resigned and left office before things got out of hand. On December 26, 1979, Russia invaded Afghanistan. Russia wanted Afghanistan for its location in the Middle East. They would also make it communistic. The United States didn't get involved because they knew Russia was getting involved, and what the U.S. had was another Vietnam. Afghanistan was already beginning a civil war because some believed in going against Muslim tradition while others thought that was outrageous and couldn't even think or hear about going against Muslim beliefs. Amin was the prime minister of Afghanistan who tried to get rid of Muslim tradition. Muslims who wanted to stay with beliefs joined Mujahideen, who led a guerrilla force in the name of Allah. Amin was ended up shot by Russian troops when they invaded. President Reagan was shot March 30th, 1981 in Washington, D.C. It was an attempted assassination, but Reagan ended up surviving and continuing his presidency. John Hinckley Jr. was the man who tried to shoot not only Reagan, but he also got 2 other men. Reagan was shot twice, once in the chest and the other in the right arm. Reagan was able to leave the hospital 13 days later. The survived assassination actually increased Reagan's likability among the people. They saw him as a strong person and a good leader. On May 29, 1988, Reagan and the Secretary of Communism, Gorbachev, met in Moscow. The two men discussed issues such as Central America, the Soviets withdrawing troops in Afghanistan, and human rights issues. Reagan thought the summit meeting was a success for the United States. Both men wanted to stop the tensions between the United States and Russia and try to put a stop to the Cold War. Both men respected each other and thought the United States and Russia could get along better, as long as both countries agreed not to do anything out of sorts. They believed that Russia and the U.S. could become great allies and unstoppable forces. The United States got a new president November 8th, 1988. His name was George Bush. George Bush won easily against his opponents. His opponents was Democratic Dukakis and his Vice President Benson. Bush was a Republican, while his two opponents were both Democrats. Bush got 426 electoral votes, while Dukakis got 111 electoral votes. Bush didn't face much competition and won by a landslide. Bush had to help America change and try to calm things down in the Cold War and stop the domino theory that was a real threat to the United States and its democracy. Tiananmen Square was in China, where students protested against the Chinese government. The students were protesting because they thought China should be more democratic. They didn't want a communistic China. Tiananmen Square is also known as the Tiananmen Square Massacre because not all facts have been released, but historians believe thousands of people were killed. People began to realize communism in China was bad and saw democracy as a better concept. It was mostly college students who were in the protests. There was an estimated 1.2 billion people at the protests at one point. The student protest began on June 3rd, 1989. The Berlin Wall separating East and West Berlin was taken down November 10th, 1989. The wall separated Russia's side of Berlin from the United States side and the United States allies. Many people were upset with the wall because they had family on the other side or did not approve of Russia's communism. Troops patrolled the Russian east side, and if anyone wanted to climb over, they would be killed or thrown in jail. Everyone tried to sneak from east to west Berlin because the West had a free democracy and was better off. When the head of the East German Communist Party said people could cross the wall whenever they wanted, people went to the wall that night. People hated the wall, and that night began to take it down with pickaxes and hammers. People could finally see their relatives and friends when the wall came down, and the world stopped to watch, and the world was very happy.